What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Tesla Geek Show. My name is Anwar Beck.
And I'm Eli, and on this week's episode, we are talking about space, SpaceX, and the upcoming exciting event that's happening this next week, the launch of the Crew Dragon. So this week's episode of the Tesla Geek Show is sponsored by EvanX. EvanX is the #1 Tesla Communities accessory store. One of the awesome things you can get at EvanX is the Adventures of Starman comics. Go check it out, and if you don't already, pick up your copies today.
Dude, big week. T-minus 3 days of a very, very historic adventure for us Earthlings.
So here's what's happening, guys. So on Wednesday, currently the first launch window is Wednesday. It is scheduled for American astronauts to return to space from U.S. soil in the first time in 10 years. So if you don't follow the space thing closely, you may not realize that like 10 years ago, we canceled the shuttle program. And as a result, all of our flights from our astronauts going into orbit, going to the ISS, we've been having to send them up on Russian Soyuz rockets. Well, today we finally reached the culmination of many years of work by SpaceX that their Crew Dragon capsule is certified for flight, and they're getting ready to put 2 astronauts, Bob and Doug, into space for the first time ever of a crewed mission that SpaceX has ever undertaken. Like, I can't even tell you how huge this is, and honestly, how slightly terrifying.
Yeah, dude, that's kind of what I was thinking about too. Is like, there's a lot on the line, right? Like everything that Elon's been working on. I think he started SpaceX in like 2001 almost. I mean, this has been a build up. So this is by far like the most important thing that SpaceX has done since their existence.
Yeah, no, this is a huge moment. Like, they've done great things with the Falcon 9. They've done great things with the Falcon Heavy, but having a successful crewed flight is a huge step in their march towards ultimately having a huge chunk of the moon mission and putting humans on Mars. This is SpaceX's first human flight. And you got to imagine nerves and everybody is on edge at SpaceX leading up to this. And, one of the things that Elon has said is, there's a million ways for a rocket launch to go wrong, but only one way for it to go right. So that they're dotting every I, crossing every T, rechecking everything you can imagine, because this flight has to be a success.
Because Demo 1 was almost a year ago. I think it was like March of 2019 is when they did the first unmanned, kind of the same exact thing, but like the very first try at it, wasn't it? Like almost a year ago. So I'm sure people are wondering why it took so long for the actual Crew Demo 2 launch to happen. But I'm assuming there's been a bunch of tests over the last year and a half.
So the certification process for a crewed capsule like this is a very lengthy one, and there's no shortcuts, and you can't miss any components, and it has to there's a number of iterations and time expected in this process. And actually, so the crazy part is both SpaceX and Boeing are the 2 U.S. companies that won the contracts to do private manned missions for NASA. And Boeing actually has to scrap a bunch of things and redo it because on their orbital test, it failed a number of the requirements. And they also found that there was millions of lines of code that had never been properly validated. So at the moment, SpaceX, although it felt like SpaceX took a long time, SpaceX got done way faster than the other player in the game.
Because so back in 2010, so this has been almost a decade. So when NASA finished up this space shuttle program, they basically started this, what they call commercial crew program, right? And a bunch of people bid. Blue Origin was in there, SpaceX, Boeing, and a few other companies. And in 2014, basically SpaceX and Boeing was awarded the contract. And there's 2 different programs kind of happening since 2014, right?
That's correct. So there was the SpaceX Crew Dragon, and then Boeing is doing the Starliner.
Mm-hmm. And there's a Crew and a Cargo Dragon, because at some point they're gonna have to take supplies up there as well, correct? Like you can do either one.
Correct. So SpaceX has been flying resupply missions for NASA to the ISS for a very, very long time now. They've done, I can't even remember how many resupply missions, like 19 or something. Resupply missions, I think SpaceX has done.
Is that the same Dragon capsule that these guys are going up in?
So
the resupply missions?
It did have some similarities, but definitely the manned capsule is very different than just cargo. And there's much stricter requirements, and there's much more advanced things they have to meet because they have to keep astronauts alive instead of just shipping up goods.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've watched a bunch of it. I don't follow the SpaceX space space, like you
Space,
do.
space, space.
Space. But definitely, I think a lot of Tesla geeks, the Tesla community is, it's like something. There are a lot of people that share that passion, not only for Tesla space, but also SpaceX. So I think this will be an epic day. Our Tesla Owners Club is doing a virtual call. I'm thinking a bunch of people. We're gonna all kind of like at the same time be sharing in the excitement. I think currently the window in central, at least in Texas, is like 3:33. So we'll jump on maybe 10, 15 minutes before then and just kind of sharing the excitement. I mean, this is going to be a historic epic day. Keeping our fingers crossed that everything goes off without a hitch.
When the launch does happen, whether it be Wednesday, so right now the primary launch window is Wednesday. If Wednesday has to be
Mm-hmm.
scrubbed, which by the way, guys, happens a lot for rockets, especially coming out of Florida, because weather there is unpredictable. Like currently, it's forecasted to be thunderstorming for the next week there. Now things do change
Wow.
quickly, so like current estimate probability of launch on Wednesday is at 40%. That's the
Eli,
chance it actually goes off on Wednesday.
Eli and I know this firsthand. Tesla invited us. Actually, I'm wearing the T-shirt in honor of that. This is the Tesla referral program. If you got to a third tier, we were all invited to Cape Canaveral to watch the Falcon Heavy, the second Falcon Heavy launch.
And how long were we there waiting for that launch to go off?
We
A week and a half.
It was like we went there for what was supposed to be a day and a half. We like had our incoming, outgoing flights, and we ended up basically just like crashing and staying there for almost a week and a half. But it was actually really cool because like a bunch of other like YouTubers and our friends came out there. So we basically had nothing else to do but to wait for this, for the weather to be perfect and all these other things that Eli's talking about. So we're not surprised if this thing gets pushed. Like it literally, like what Elon was saying, the conditions have to be perfect, and they're not going to risk two people's lives with, especially, right? Like this has to be a 100% perfect conditions. So this could be pushed, but we had a blast. Kim from Like Tesla was there. Dan, our buddy from What's Inside, we all got to hang out with them. Matt from Evanex was out there as well. So gave us a good chance to like kind of really spend quality time with community members.
That's where I
Um,
first met. I think that's where we first met Soph in person. Him and his
that's
wife
right.
Shelly and his son Matthew were there. No, that was a
Yeah,
great
yeah.
time. So it's awesome. You guys are be doing a virtual watch party for this launch. So I
Mhm.
won't be able to join your watch party because I'm actually going to be on the ground there at the launch. Starman's going to
That's
be there, and they're going to
epic.
see some amazing. You're going to see some amazing footage with Starman involved as the launch happens. So whether it be Wednesday, whether it be Saturday, whether it be a week from now, I'm going to be there until the launch happens. I'm committed. So I've
That's
already got a
awesome.
place for a week down on Cocoa Beach, and I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay up to like 2.5 weeks. If it goes any longer than that, I'm going to have to get back to see my daughter because, like, at a certain point, I
Yeah,
get pretty sad if I haven't seen her.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm there for at least 2 weeks waiting for this thing to fly. Again, I hope it goes off next week. I think there's a good chance between Wednesday or Saturday we get to see the bird take off and this moment happen. But I do got to say, man, when this launch does go down, I think I may be holding my breath all the way until they dock like 6 hours later.
Yeah.
Not really. So like the scariest part of the flight is all the way to max Q. And
Mm.
max Q is basically the moment where the rocket is undergoing maximum atmospheric pressure. So where
Mhm.
the rockets hit this intersection between velocity and atmosphere, where it's experiencing the most amount of force on the rocket. And so long as the rocket survives max Q, you're pretty much fine getting into orbit, because that's the
Yeah.
moment of like, if anything's going to go wrong, that's the moment of maximum pressure. So I think max Q is like a minute and a half in, something like that, into the launch. I may not breathe until they get past max Q.
I feel like we need to put in a word to Elon or somebody at SpaceX that Starman needs a patch. And actually, they
Man,
don't they don't pass out the patches unless it's a successful mission. We know that from when we went. Remember, the memorabilia didn't come out until everything was perfect. But hopefully, fingers crossed, everything goes well. That patch for this mission demo two is going to be like history, basically. And you know what I want to see? I want to see that patch on Starman's uniform, right?
oh, Starman will definitely wear it. And yeah, no, it makes sense they don't hand it out ahead of time, because the worst thing you want to do is hand that thing out and afterwards that thing go wrong. But yeah, no, Starman, if when
Yeah.
that thing comes out, you'll see Starman donning it.
That's awesome. And for those of you that like have interest in watching this, you just go to spacex.com. It's super simple. Tesla or SpaceX has done such a wonderful job, like I usually will watch some of these, not every single one, but I've kind of made it like a ritual. I think it's fun to be watching it live. And the thing is, if you go to, it's really easy. So go to SpaceX.com. They're usually live streaming it. But what I love is get on there a bit earlier before. I think they're even starting the broadcasting like 4 hours early for this one because it's such an epic historic event. But I love how the SpaceX people like the employees, they'll explain in layman's term what's going on, like what they're going to be going through. So you're actually learning as you're watching this thing. And, and then while the events are happening, it's amazing to be watching it real time.
The broadcasting staff is phenomenal, and they do a pretty good job educating you, sharing you information, and kind of building hype. It's going to be interesting for this one because, like, people are like, I'm very interested to see what the mood is, and I won't get to watch a lot of the live stream because I'm going to be on the ground, obviously, like seeing it go down. But I'm very interested to see like what the tone of it is, just because like there's so much at stake, right? Like I think one of the mistakes that we made, as a space program, as a country, is all the celebration and fanfare that happened around Columbia. Or the Challenger, only to like have like, everyone was hyped out about it. It was like the first teacher in space and all this different stuff, only to like a couple minutes into the launch, have the thing blow up. And all these people that we had all learned like a ton about, we watched just explode in front of us. So I think there's definitely going to be some caution in how they cover this to like not celebrate too early,
Yeah.
Oh, hey, check it out. We got a quick little guest joining us here on the show. Come here, sweetheart. Come say hi to the fans. They want to see your shirt. So I had this awesome shirt made. I took Elon's Occupies Mars design that also like had the moon on it, and I swapped it around, and we put. Let me show you.
Whoa!
We put the Starman helmet with the reflection of Mars. So these are new shirts that I have. I'm going to get them up on the website here soon. But that's what I'll be wearing. We'll be wearing at the launch. This is Scarlett.
Scarlett, I like your shirt. That's really cool. I want one of those. Your shirt.
I'll send you one. All right. So let's go back to the beginning of how we ended up here, because to have SpaceX, which is one of the newest, you got to let me record, sweetheart.
I think you should keep this.
I will. Okay. You want to bring the dogs into the party?
Aw. Yay.
All right, can we record now? All right, I'm going to set them over here to the side so they're not on camera. They can watch, though.
That's awesome.
Oh, man, she's a huge space fan. Okay, anyways, so how we got to where we are today, which is like SpaceX being like the youngest launch provider doing this type of scale of stuff. Let's go all the way back to where they started. And Anwar Beck, do you remember what the initial plan was of Elon when he was going to do a rocket? Like, do you remember what his first, objective was?
Yeah, so recently, Ashley Vance, remember the guy that wrote kind of the first Elon biography or whatever?
Ashley Vance, yeah, of course.
Yeah, so recently he had an interview with Elon, and I think they discussed some of this stuff. I forget, Bloomberg, I think, was the publication that Ashley Vance published, kind of like this recent interview, just like a couple of days ago. And in there, he was talking about how like the origin of SpaceX story, of course, centers around Elon. Imagine this dude is $160 million richer. He just cashed out of PayPal, right? I think it's like 2008. Like we're all going through the financial crisis, but Elon is in this like transitional period. So I think he was kind of in this, like he wanted to figure out what he wanted to do with his life or whatever. Actually, it was much earlier than that, I feel like, SpaceX's origin story. But basically, Elon originally, he had time on his hands now since he wasn't doing PayPal full time. So he started researching online. This is according to the book, is like he starts going to NASA's website and trying to figure out when are they planning to go to Mars and all this stuff. And what he finds out is like there basically weren't big plans by the United States or by NASA to explore the frontier. So Elon had this really cool idea called Mars Oasis. So originally, all he wanted to do, the reason, I think he just wanted to spend a few $1 million, just like, kind of just like spark interest back in space program and space travel, possibly going to Mars. He was trying to start like a small greenhouse. I think he wanted to basically launch a rocket towards Mars, not manned, have this greenhouse thing land there so he can say there's life on Mars, right? Like a plant life or whatever. That was the original origin story of SpaceX. Elon wasn't being like, I'm going to start a rocket company.
No,
So
in
then,
fact, remember when he went to go buy the first rocket from the Russians?
yeah,
He went to go buy effectively an ICBM. The only
yeah,
difference
yeah,
is it didn't have the, nuclear missile on it, but it was a very big rocket. And
yeah,
the Russians laughed at him. They were
yeah,
basically like, get out of here. We're not selling you a rocket. Go home, billionaire boy.
yeah.
And man, we'll come full circle back to that one later. But how wrong were they?
Yep. So of course we know how Elon operates because we've seen him do this with Tesla. His whole like theme of engineering is first principles thinking, right? So he's like, okay, this Russia thing isn't gonna work. They laughed me out of Russia. Like he couldn't buy these used rockets and different things. So I think he like SpaceX originally just was like very few people. It's that famous picture where Elon's with the mariachi, like the you know what I'm talking about? Like they're like celebrating, I think,
Yep,
like
it's
1 year
literally Elon with
anniversary.
the maracas, and they're at the mariachi band, and it was back in like the
Yeah, yeah,
founding of SpaceX of just like a handful of people in an office.
yeah. So I think what they were doing is basically just starting from scratch and trying to figure out why why is it that these rocket launches cost billions of dollars, you know? And it seemed very intuitive to Elon, like basically these rockets that we were the is something that only nations could do, right? Like you needed like this wasn't at that time there was no such thing as a private company trying to compete with NASA in essence.
Not like SpaceX. I
Um,
mean, there was ULA, which was like a partnership between Boeing and Lockheed and a
mhm.
handful of other launch providers that were like, basically in bed with the government and had massive, massive, massive billions and billions of dollars of contracts. And these companies were already, multi-billion dollar companies already to start with. So it took huge entities to be able to build launch vehicles.
Yeah, and I mean, in essence, what Elon, of course, what they found out is, yeah, because there's no reusability in rockets. Like once you use a rocket one time, it's the same thing as like if every time we flew on an airplane, afterwards you have to trash the plane. Like how much more expensive would it be? It's that concept. Like we reuse airplanes over and over, and we use them. That's why travel can be inexpensive.
And
But
that
with
analogy makes so much sense because it's like
mhm,
we've always done it this way, which is we throw a
mhm,
rocket into space, we burn it up, and it's gone. Like
mhm,
so that's just the way we do things. And he's like, but you would never do it that way with an airplane. If somebody said
yep,
we're going to throw away the airplane after every flight, you'd say, are you crazy? This is too expensive to fly. So
yeah,
like the fact that he looked at it that way and was like, we don't have to do it this way is amazing. What I even love too, though, is that the idea of reusing a rocket, NASA and the whole world said was completely impossible. So I want to remind everybody of that as we go through this story. All right, continue
yeah.
on, Rebecca.
And then so they're down this road now. They're like, okay, we got to figure out a way to reuse these boosters. And the thing that a lot of people don't know about Tesla is Elon was not Tesla, SpaceX and Tesla actually. The stories kind of like coincide at one point, right? I forget the time, but right around the financial crisis, I believe Elon, Tesla, and SpaceX all came on the brink, I mean, hours away from bankruptcy because there was a point where he was really struggling with Tesla. And at the same time, they failed three different rocket launches where the rockets like exploded. They like he just couldn't get a rocket up into space, right? So there was like this. He had one final shot. You know how they say third time's a charm, where with SpaceX is the fourth time basically is when they actually got it right.
Here's the craziest part. Elon was not a rocket engineer or a rocket scientist. He literally learned on the job. He was the chief engineer and had never worked on rockets, not commercially. So like he literally taught himself rocket science. I just want to like, if your mind isn't blown by a lot of things he's done, he taught himself rockets. And again, they did. They literally got to the point of like, if this last one failed, it was it. It was over. But it didn't
What,
fail. They
what was
made
the
it to
name
orbit.
of? Yeah, what was that one? The first rocket that the where we reused the. That's the one that's out there right now. The hardware is there, right? The rocket's the one outside of SpaceX when we went and visited.
I
It's like
believe
one of the
so.
Falcon is a Falcon 9 or something like one of the original.
No, so
I
Falcon
believe.
9 is the rocket they're flying now. I forgot
Oh,
the name
okay.
of the first. I don't know if it was the Falcon 1. You know what? I'm going to actually have to look that up because like that's
Look at
part of
it.
the history I don't remember.
But if you want to go with your own eyes, go see this. If you're in the LA area or ever go visit, go to SpaceX's headquarters. You'll see this massive rocket, like in their lawn, essentially. But that is from what I understand, I
The
think that was the
Falcon
very
1.
first
The
Falcon
first
One.
rocket they
Okay,
manufactured was the Falcon 1. That's
and
correct.
that's so the first one that successfully was reused. So it went into space, it came back and landed.
That wasn't the
on
Falcon
the.
1. So the first rocket they flew was the Falcon 1. The first
Oh, okay, okay.
reusable was the Falcon 9.
Oh, Falcon 9 was a reusable. Okay, okay,
Yep.
cool. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like I urge you guys to go do this one day. Go. It's like puts it in perspective what they're doing because you stand up next to this rocket and you're just like, and this we're not even talking about Falcon Heavy or any of that stuff, right? These are like the original rockets, the Falcon 1, but even that's massive. Um, I wish I could talk more about this, but I've gotten a tour of SpaceX. Like I've got some good friends that work there, and but I
It's
can't discuss
mind
it.
blowing. No, I
I
know.
can't
It's like,
discuss, but it's like no words. Like imagine a manufacturing plant for damn rockets. Like you know, this cars is one thing, but literally they're not working on just one rocket. Like this is a plant, manufacturing plant. You know, I guess I can say at a high level, there's like a lot of 3D printing going on. You got a bunch of rocket thrusters and boosters, and like I'm
it's
walking
geek out
around
level
just like
1,000 in there.
a
Like
thousand.
literally,
Yeah,
like there's literally
yeah,
just like rocket engines and Merlin engines and just like
yeah,
rocket tubes and guys assembling nose cones and like it's
yeah,
all happening. Like right, like my mind explodes. And like, oh,
yeah,
the
yeah,
executive head of propulsion's right over there talking to some engineers and like it's just
yeah.
insane stepping into that place. It's like you walk in there and you're like, yeah, we're gonna go. These guys are gonna take us to Mars.
Yeah, it's crazy. So basically, that's kind of the high level overview. Like, it's been a long journey, right? I mean, over a decade. I think SpaceX, I thought I read somewhere 2001 is when Elon started kind of like even thinking about this idea of this Mars oasis. So it goes back even that far. I don't know the exact origin date of when he started SpaceX as a company, but this is maybe a couple of decades of effort on Elon's part, at least from the very beginning of all this. And now we take all this stuff for granted. Like, people, that's what like really frustrates me is like people don't even you just go to spacex.com and watch this thing. People don't even watch it because we're so used to these rockets going up, coming back and landing on these drone ships. What's the name of the drone ship? I think I still love you or
Of
something.
course, I still love you.
Of
Yep.
course I still love you. It's just like every time I pinch myself when I'm watching this stuff online, I like to watch it live if I can. I'm just kind of like, and every time I'm like, this is sci-fi shit. Like this should not be like, this is real life, but like this is stuff you read in comics.
The
What
landing of
Elon's
the
doing.
boosters is like made up. And you're right, it is comic book stuff. That's why it's literally in the Adventures of Starman comics because this stuff seems like it's fake. But the crazy part is like a lot of people don't know because the media isn't really covering it like the way it deserves. In fact, I was surprised to find out that a lot of people didn't even know SpaceX was landing boosters until they saw the demo flight of the Falcon Heavy, which is where they put Starman into space. And we got to see this
Yeah.
amazing video that I'm going to embed in this clip right after I finish this sentence of watching the dual boosters land onto the landing pads, like basically at the same time. That was the first
Yeah.
moment that a lot of people even knew they were landing boosters. They've been doing it for like 2.5 years by the time that moment happened.
Yeah. I mean, I remember the first time I saw that. I saw the first time I saw that like virtually, I got goosebumps. And then when you and I saw the Falcon Heavy launch and you see it with your own naked eye, I was just like, I mean, it's emotional, dude. Like, I'm usually not like a very emotional person, but like I was tearing up. I was like, how is this possible? Like, this is comic book shit. And
That
I'm
rocket is
watching,
so massive.
yeah. And you hear the sonic boom when it comes back, right? Whenever they like, oh,
The double booms,
the
yeah, it
bubble
was
boom. Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
And these giant,
But
like glowing candlesticks just coming out of the sky and landing. Like, it's like, did this really just happen? Are we really landing rocket boosters?
the Arabsat Falcon Heavy launch that we're talking about, the second one, there's three boosters, right? There's the main boosters and two side boosters. So the side boosters, I think, come and land together. It's like a ballerina act, right? People they
Yeah.
come back and land back where they launched on land. The third one continues to take the cargo even further out into space, and then that one lands in the ocean on a drone ship.
Yeah. By the
So
way, yeah, they have a drone
three,
ship landing pad, by the way, which is
yes,
absurd.
three boosters land, right? Like it's just mind-boggling stuff.
And this last one, the Rabsat one, they actually did land the booster on the drone ship successfully. They
Yeah, yeah,
attempted it on the demo launch, it missed. On the Rabsat, it did land successfully. Unfortunately, the mechanism they have to grip the booster. They hadn't
Mhm.
they haven't they hadn't retrofitted the drone ship yet with this new octo claw thing that they need for the center booster. What they had was just designed for catching the Falcon 9 side boosters. And as a result, although they did catch the booster, it fell over due to high winds on the way back in from the ocean. So they weren't able to recover the center booster on that one. But now with that new claw thing, they fully expect that the next time the center booster will make it back to land. So it's absolutely incredible. And in fact, I think the next Falcon Heavy launch, it's either, I don't know if we have a Falcon Heavy launch this year, but I know for certain we have one next year.
Okay.
SpaceX is going to send a satellite for the government to an asteroid called Psyche to go explore it and photograph it and stuff.
No
Because
way.
yeah, they're sending a probe to an asteroid because it's going to be an asteroid that is a target for mining in the
Oh,
future.
wow.
Yeah.
So we've talked about kind of like we went back in time and talked about the past. We talked about presently what's going on. I mean, in just T-minus 3 days, this demo 2 is happening. Eli, you follow the space pretty closely. Let's talk about the future a little bit. What in your opinion, how does all this add up? I know Elon was saying the ultimate goal is basically the things that we're doing now at the fund going to Mars, right? Like,
So the real mission of SpaceX, and you see this inside, it's like making humanity a multiplanetary species. So everything that they're doing is pushing towards the cause of getting us to Mars. So SpaceX's mission is to build the launch vehicles to take cargo and people from here to Mars and take not just some cargo, but a lot of cargo. So Elon's plan, that what they're doing in Boca Chica, Texas, is they are building a rocket manufacturing assembly line where they are going to mass produce starships. And Elon's plan is to have a fleet of 1,000 starships. You feel like what we've seen so far seems like fake sci-fi stuff? Imagine when there was literally just a field just filled with giant rockets that are going to be constantly flying, going back and forth from Earth to the moon for the initial moon base to Mars. Like, this is going to be fake. Like, even when there's just dozens of them or hundreds of them, it's going to be an absolute sight to be seen.
this is that. So the Boca Chica, that's in Brownsville, by the way, guys. I live in Austin, Texas. I used to work in McAllen, which is like outskirts of this area. It's a 6-hour drive from Austin, like 5-6 hours. That's another reason why I think this rumor about his headquarters moving to Texas. I don't think it's a rumor because if you look at both of the things that he's super involved in, Tesla and SpaceX, that it would help Elon if like geographically they were even in the same state. You know what I mean? So I think there are more than rumors, is what I'm saying. I could easily see
I think
Elon
so
even
too.
moving. I think Elon's going to move to Austin, and I think he's just going to spend his time between South Texas and Austin, Texas, because Terra, Texas will be in Austin. Tesla's headquarters will be there, and SpaceX is manufacturing. Possibly even their headquarters maybe even moves down there as well at some point, and not in LA. So I don't know.
We'll see what happens. I don't see SpaceX headquarters moving because what they're actually doing in Hawthorne is a huge, like, building a huge undertaking with a lot going on. But like, I mean, that won't change the fact that they're going to have this massive rocket lab.
Yeah. And talk a bit about a couple of years ago, SpaceX released a video where they show this, like, anywhere on planet Earth, you can travel within under an hour or whatever. This was
yeah. So one of the plans for Starship, the Earth-based commercial plans, is to actually use the Starship rocket to take people at very high speeds from, like, New York to China in like 15 minutes, because the rocket's got to fly up out into space, come back down, and be to its destination extremely quick. So there's actually plans to use rockets for like intercontinental travel. It's kind of mind-blowing.
Do you think in our lifetime, like Eli and Anwar Beck, one day Tesla geeks will go to Beijing? Like I'll fly out.
We will fly around in rockets. And because what they're 100%. It's going to be expensive. Initially, it's going to be a novelty, something for like wealthy and stuff like that. But like, dude, are you kidding? Of course we will. It's 100% going to happen. Oh, it's definitely going to happen. And with how cheap it is to refuel this thing using methane, like once they get things nailed down, it could be 10 or 20 years, it could be 10 years. I don't know. Elon moves incredibly fast. So it's probably going to be in the next 5 to 10 years before we're hopping around the world that way. But yeah, I'll do it early. Like I said, once I get it all worked out, like I'm in. I'm so in.
And we both live like by the coast or whatever, by the water. So in essence, what the way this would work is I would have to drive down to like Galveston, Texas, get on a ship basically, and uh, with a ship you go out to this like some sort of drone, an area where they have the rocket in water, right, on a drone ship somewhere. They'll load up like 100 people or so, and then basically, I think it's basically anywhere on planet Earth at point A to B, but I think on average like 30 minutes. So imagine flying out of Texas and in 38 minutes being in freaking Beijing, China, grabbing dinner, and then coming back late. I mean, this is like, it sounds like sci-fi, but it could happen in our lifetime.
You want to get sushi? Hey, let's go to that Michelin star restaurant in Japan.
Yeah. And then,
No,
and
there's going to be
then, and,
spaceports even for Earth to Earth travel.
yeah.
Hey, man, give me just a
Oh,
minute. Becca's about to get here to get Scarlett. I gotta handle
okay.
this, and then let me pause.
Okay. Okay.
So, one of the other awesome things that's coming, not just intercontinental travel, is they're going to be doing. There's a company they've partnered with. It's called like Space Tours or something like that. People are going to have the ability to pay to be flown into space and orbit the Earth in a Crew Dragon capsule.
Wow.
Yes, like just as an experience. That is something I absolutely have to do in my lifetime. I got to wait a while because I need all the money right now to develop the Adventures of Starman. So eventually the Adventures of Starman is going to put me in space. That's basically the cool part of the story. But yeah, no, private people are going to be able to pay. It's called like Space Ventures or Space Tours. And they're going to be able to pay to get a trip into space on top of a Falcon 9 in a Crew Dragon capsule, orbit the Earth, do that whole thing, and then just come back down and the capsule will, land in the ocean or whatever. But also a cool one too is SpaceX is going to be taking Tom Cruise like next year to the International Space Station to film a scene for one of his movies.
Is that real?
Yes, that's really going to happen.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was just like speculation.
Nope.
I saw that in the news.
Jim Bridenstine, sorry, I messed up pronouncing his name, the head of NASA. He immediately, he was out tweeting and retweeting about it, saying this is awesome. And it is awesome.
That's crazy.
Because having a mainstream movie shot in space does help get more people inspired, or at least aware that we're doing something up there. So it's going to be an awesome event.
So then on top of that, I think the final thing that SpaceX is working on, at least like commercially, is the Starlink satellite system and all that stuff, right? I'm sure there will be other business ventures that SpaceX will be involved in, but high level, all these things that Elon's working on is basically the pay to get to Mars is how I'm understanding it. Is that right?
That's it. Everything he's doing, it's paving the way for Mars for sure. Like I heard some speculation that even the Cybertruck, which is this cold rolled steel, which by the way, it's using the same steel as SpaceX. Guess what benefits are going to happen to both of those companies that they're both using the same material, right? SpaceX is going to make thousands of starships with this steel. Tesla's going to make millions of cars with this steel. So they're just driving down manufacturing costs for each other and also helping support the mission, which is to get humans to Mars.
Dude, I cannot wait to see a day when, like, I think our buddy Everyday Astronaut was talking about this last time we all hung out in Austin. Basically, like, Starship goes to Mars, and then you break the cold rolled steel apart, and you build a Cybertruck on Mars. Like, that could easily happen, right? It sounds like sci-fi, but and then we'll be driving around on Mars in what did Elon call it? A tank from the future, but
yeah, it's an armored personnel carrier from the future.
Yeah, but yeah, dude, this was a fun episode, man. Good luck, travel safe, and I can't wait for this launch, dude. I'm just like antsy. It's just a few more days away, and my birthday is actually in a couple of days on May 26th, so I'm taking this as a birthday present from Uncle Elon. But I'll definitely be glued to my TV. I'll log in from the very beginning. I think like 4 hours early, they said they're going to start talking about all this stuff and get my Tesla Owners Club in Austin involved. Like, it's going to be a lot of fun, man. Hopefully everything goes off without a hitch. Keeping our fingers crossed.
Holding my breath, fingers crossed. And this week, so this is going to be held for release until after the astronauts dock successfully with the ISS. But there is a special animation that I've got ready that's going to come out involving Starman in the ISS, but I'm going to hold that until Bob and Doug make it there safely. So I just want to say, guys, thank you so much for watching this week's episode of the Tesla Geek Show. We love having you part of this audience, and we can't wait to have you back for more. Peace.